I played chess when I was a kid. And one day I was in the chess club after school at my junior high school, and one of the guys started talking about this game he had played that had hexes and had like archers that shot over hills at other troops. And he's like, it's kind of like chess, but it's just a lot more fun with real armies. And I was completely blown away. I thought, wow, what is that? I went immediately down to Moe's Toys in the sprawling metropolis of Hanford, California, and spent my first $8 purchase on Avalon Hill's D-Day. That was my first war game. And took it home and played it. And the next month when I had $8 more, I went and got another one. For a while there for me, it was $8 a month because that's all I could really pull together back in those days. And I was spending it on war games. That was the beginning. At the time, it was Avalon Hill war games and sports games. I played APBA sports games like baseball and football, and it's why I can do stats in my head to this day. That was really my gaming time, was sports games and war games. I played solitaire. Like so many other people in that era, I learned how to play both sides, learned how to lie to myself a little bit, forget what I just did so I could go play the other side. That was long before they made a lot of solitaire games, so you kind of had to do it that way. But I didn't have a gaming community around, so I played solo. In college, I happened to be in a bigger city, and I went down to a game store, and the only thing I knew that existed was Avalon Hill up to this point. And they had games from like 5 or 10 different companies. There's a company called SPI. There's a company called GDW, Game Designers Workshop. One summer, I spent the summer in Frederick, Maryland, and every weekend I would go down to Baltimore and go to the game shop. There's a big game shop in Baltimore, and buy one game, because usually that's what I could afford. And I bought a lot of SPI games back then. So one Saturday, I go down to the store, and nobody was there. There are always 20 people in the store. And I asked the store owner, hey, what's up? Where is everybody? And he said, oh, they're all out at Origins. And I said, what is Origins? And he said, oh, it's this game convention they're having out at the community college here at Towson State, I guess. He said, it's great. There'll be like 1,000 people there. So he gave me directions, and I went out there, got out in the parking lot, and there's a guy hawking SPI game, 5th Core, and I love modern games. I spent $6 in the parking lot. That was pretty much my budget, so I blew my budget for the whole day. And then I went inside, and I was just blown away. That's where I met Mark Herman the first time, because Victory Games had a booth, and they had this big, beautiful map of the Persian Gulf for Gulf Strike. But I spent probably 6 hours there that day just walking through the different company booths and just being totally blown away, because I had no idea this really even existed. I knew it was a hobby because I knew Avalon Hill existed. There had to be customers, but I never really met any of them. And so Origins was the eye-opener for me. And of course, since I've been to Origins with 50,000 people. But back then, for this kid who just grew up playing these things solo, even meeting Mark Herman, who would, I had seen his name on games before. I was like, wow, I got to meet Mark Herman. Because it's my hobby, and that's all I did. I was a computer guy. I ran a computer company for 6 years. That didn't go too well when Walmart started selling computers cheaper than we could buy them. I guess I was just dumb enough to think I could do it. I really liked games. Like a lot of people in our hobby, I got to a point where I started thinking maybe I could make one. In college, I had made just for practice, I had made a little game on the Battle of Bryce's Crossroads using kind of a regimental Civil War kind of series. And it was good, I thought. By today's standards, it'd be terrible. But it was my first try, and when I say it was good, it played. You could actually play both sides and come to conclusion, and it felt relatively historical. So I started thinking I could design something. I started playing around with things I'd been reading. I'd been reading some books on Guadalcanal. I read a really good book called Play Coup about First Air Cav in Vietnam. And so I started working on those games. I was playing games with some guys at that time in Fresno. And one day we started talking about it. And we're like, why don't we just make a game company? And so we did. So many things I didn't know about the game business. But somehow, 35 years later, it seems to be going okay. I'll figure it out sooner or later. That's the best part, is that your coworkers become your friends. And by the way, so do your customers. You see people here at this event, there's 120 people here, and probably a quarter of those people that I could genuinely call my friends, like people I've spent time with, had meals with, we played games together. There's probably another 25% of them that I played a game with, haven't spent as much time with, but we're friendly. And then there's the rest of them that I haven't met yet, but hopefully they will be my friends, and because that's what happens when you spend time together in a hobby that everybody's passionate about. So that's my favorite thing about working with all these talented people, is that they become your friends. I mean, my second favorite thing is they're just awesome. They're so smart and they're so talented. I very often feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room, but then I think it's okay because, I'm no slouch and we can do amazing things together. And I think we have. So I think when the game first came out, people had said, why would you do a game on a current conflict? They maybe looked at it like it's this big group of Western nations against these little groups of jihadists. Why would I want to play that? That's not what the game is at all. I mean, Voco is a master at creating games that have asymmetry in them and yet are really fun, engaging games. What I think is that when I'm playing the United States, I've got all these cool tools and I never feel like I have enough tools to do the job. And when I play the jihadist, I think I have some very almost low budget tools. They seem like they're less flashy than the tools that the US player has, but they can really inflict a lot of damage. And if you get good at playing the jihadist side, I think it can actually be more rewarding as a play experience. I hear players tell me all the time, I can't play Distant Plain because I was in Afghanistan. I can't play Labyrinth because I was part of the War on Terror. 100% respect that. And I'm not sure we're still far enough away from it that you could play it like you're playing, Alexander the Great, and I don't care which side I'm on. The history is so far away in the past now that there's no emotion tied to it. There's still a lot of emotion tied to the War on Terror. There are families all over America that lost family members because of that war, or soldiers that have permanent reminders of that war. And so we didn't do a game about this lightly, and I get it that some people wouldn't want to play it. It wouldn't be their thing. And some other people wouldn't want to play the jihadists. In fact, I told Voco when we first did the game, I said, we've got to have an AI for the jihadists so that the people that don't want to play them can still enjoy Labyrinth. And it turned out now we've got AI for both sides. And I think part of that is maybe enough time has passed that we're a little more open to doing that, playing the jihadist side. I think what I see is that players are becoming more sophisticated. I think it's kind of a normal thing that you don't know what you can do until you take the stepping stones to it, So you may not be ready for a really bigger, more in-depth, a game that requires some deep thinking until you play one that's almost like that. And as soon as you play something that's almost there, then you're more ready to play that deeper thinking game than you were before. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's enough games out there in the world now, there's enough different kinds of games that people can kind of choose their weight of game. And I know a lot of people who their weight of games is party games, that they don't even know really about strategy games. And that's fine, that's what they like. But when you start playing strategy games, there's almost an allure to what else is there? What else could I do? This was fun, but what's that next game that challenges me in maybe one more way? And that's what I do see. I see people are really open to that. What I would say is, I played solitaire games when I was a kid because I had to. I didn't have any opponents. With all the tools that are out there today and all the groups that are out there today, don't limit yourself to that. Go play some free-to-play online games from any company you like. There's bunches out there on places like Rally the Troops and Tabletopia and Board Game Arena. Go find a game you like and make some new friends. There's people looking for opponents all over the world. It's a big, fun hobby, and most of the people I meet in this hobby are fun to play games with. So don't limit yourself to just playing solo games at home like I did.